all the accomplishments that she had this year. Quite a long list for one individual. So she was a hack champion in the 300 intermediate hurdles. She was a district champion in both the 100 high hurdles and the 300. She was the Class A state champion in the 100 and the 300. She was a Papillion La Vista South Invite Girls Athlete of the Meet. She set the school record at the conference meet in the 300 with a time of 43.45. And she broke the school record in the 100 this year as well. Was that at the Papillion La Vista South meet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. With a time of 14.38. And we also got a little treat for her yesterday. She doesn't know about this. So with the time at state that she got in the all class, or with the time that she got at state, she also got the all class medal for the 100 hurdles. So the medal got delivered to us. So I'm going to have Coach Ramsey go ahead and give it to her tonight. And then they'll come down, take pictures. Any questions or any, I mean, do you want to speak about anything? Well, this is your all-conference academic award as well. We brought that for you.
Thank you.
Along with many other accomplishments. So, any questions or comments? Cecilia, you want to talk and say anything about the season?
Sure. So I'm just thankful for the recognition and everything. I'm really grateful to be able to run for Grand Island Senior High. Ever since I started my freshman year, I've always received support and help with everything from my coaches and with my teammates, and there's not a place I would rather be. So thank you.
We get to congratulate you and give you a certificate, which is not yours. All right. Do you guys want to get up in the photo too?
Wherever you want.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right, we're good. Congratulations.
Sorry, she's a junior. So she gets to come back? I hope so. Yes, she does. Absolutely.
Well, I commend, we all commend her. We were just talking about how we have trouble stepping off a curb. So, over the hurdle, so congratulations. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 4.2, State Champion Gish Unified Girls Track and Field Team, Mr. Chris Ladwig and Miss Andrea Hill.
We started Unified Track a few years back. Coach Hill started with the program, and we have blown up. The program has excelled dramatically under Coach Hill and just the resources that were given at the high school. In the state, the NSA has expanded from just a unified portion where it was boys and girls could compete any way they wish. This year they had a boys division. They also expanded to a girls division. And then also next year they're going to expand to a boys, girls, and a co-ed division. So your partner and your athlete can be a male or a female. So I also will give credit to the NSA expanding the unified piece of things. And so I can go through and talk about the recognition, but I'm going to let Coach Hill, I know she's got some things that she wants to talk about, so let her say those few things, and we'll have the athletes come up and recognize all of them for all the work they did this year.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mr. Ladwig. Appreciate it. Okay, I forgot how short I am. I better put that down a little bit. Hi, I'm Andrea Hill. I have been the head coach for Grand Island Unified Track and Field. This is our 7th season. And as Mr. Ladwig just said, this sport continues to get bigger. Every year involving 66 unified track and field teams across the state of Nebraska this spring season. Amazing. GISH Unified Track and Field has fostered connections and understanding between my athletes with students with intellectual disabilities and my partners, students without intellectual disabilities, through shared training and competition. By pairing students of similar age and ability on the same team, it breaks down stereotypes, promotes social inclusion, and creates opportunities for friendships and understanding. The past 7 years of Grand Island Unified Track and Field has provided a shared experience on the field, fostering teamwork and mutual respect and support between the athletes and partners. Our goal for the Unified Track and Field team is to create a safe space for students with and without intellectual disabilities to interact, build friendships, and develop social skills. Throughout each season of Unified Track and Field, we hope to empower all students to boost their self-esteem, self-confidence, and sense of accomplishment. For the overall school community at Grand Island Senior High, my hope is that we are providing social inclusion, which will impact the entire school climate in a positive way, promote respect, acceptance, and diversity. I want my athletes and partners to be valued for their unique talents and skills. My hope for our community and student body is that Unified Sports teaches valuable lessons about inclusion, teamwork, and leadership. It fosters empathy, communication, creating positive relationships, and a sense of community. All of this is not possible without the significant influence of commitment and attitude of my supporting cast, my assistant coaches, who all can't be here today, volunteers, my GISH AD, Chris Ladwig, GISH Assistant AD, Ian Lindberg, GISH AD Office Manager, Maria Tomlin, GISH Admin, Mr. Calvin Hubbard, Mrs. Fawn Gerstein, Miss Chris McMullen, the special education staff, which are phenomenal, various school staff, and my dedicated and committed sponsors every single year. The accomplishments. Well, we just had a state sweep at State Unified Track at Omaha Burke on May 22nd. Making history. I repeat, making history as the first unified girls team to qualify in all 4 unified track events: long jump, shot put, 100-meter dash, and 4x100 relay, and coming home with gold in all 4 events. By the way, the girls PR'd the 4x100 relay with 59.92 seconds and winning this relay by nearly 4 seconds. Seeing all 4 girls represent GISH Unified Track on the biggest stage in their respective sport was very emotional and rewarding. All 21 athletes and partners this year overcame so many personal challenges and obstacles to try their best this very season. Exceeding my expectations for a state sweep in all 4 events was the best achievement for our Unified Track and Field team. This milestone is very special to our Unified Track program because it provides our team the recognition they deserve and encourages self-awareness and social awareness that Unified Track and Field is the real deal. The team unity and school spirit we bring to every track meet is very special. I enjoy the hugs, smiles, and high fives I receive from every single one of my athletes and partners when they compete at our unified event at every track meet. We become such a close-knit family every season. I can't forget the singing and dancing Katy Perry's Firework or Justin Bieber's Baby. Everyone says Coach Hill is the mom of the team, as I fill the role of being every athlete and partner's mom throughout the season by making sure all of their needs are being met and providing safety and comfort. And thanks to my parents for always instilling their trust in me. My hope is the sport continues to grow each and every year, and the awareness grows too. One of my goals is that our GISH regular track athletes are more self-aware of the amazing things occurring in Unified Track and want to join in the years to come. I want my coaching staff and I to continue to do what we do best, building and connecting with each and every student we come into contact with and making them aware of the special opportunities Unified Sports has to offer. GIPS has established opportunities for all students, whether with or with intellectual disabilities, to thrive and grow no matter where they come from or what their story is. I strive to create equity for all students, which leads to the foundation of encouraging and developing unified sports at the high school level. None of this would be possible without building positive relationships and developing connections with every student every day to be successful. Thank you for recognizing these 4 amazing and talented young ladies, Wendy Kohler, Aurora Carr, Sophia Mora, and Bailey Simp, and their accomplishments that they made history for spring 2025.
And real quick, I'm going to add in here just so they are also all underclassmen. So I'm excited for this group as they all come back. So Aurora, go ahead and step forward. She's a junior. Wendy, go ahead and step forward. She's a junior. Sophia, she's a freshman. That's awesome. And then Bailey is also a freshman. Just real quick, Wendy and Bailey won the 100-meter dash together, and so what they do is they take each time and they combine it as one, so it's a total, and so their combined total is what won the gold medal. And they also won the shot put. Aurora and Wendy won the long jump, and Sophia and Bailey were 8th in the long jump. All 4 girls obviously won the 4x1 with a time of 59.92. So that puts Wendy winning 4 gold medals, Aurora won 2, Bailey won 3, and Sophia won 1, with a total of 10 gold medals at the state track and field indoor. I'm going to put a quick plug in. We host, last year's our first year of ever hosting a GISH unified track and field meet. We had 4 teams, 5 teams, 4? 5. Next year, we are growing the event. We will have 6 teams on that date. So if you're available, we always need help at track meets. Also, just come out and watch, because it's a great thing to come out and see and watch our kids compete. So, ladies, congratulations, and we are excited to see you continue your success. Go ahead.
Now you guys have to dance to Baby. We want us to know? Okay, what about her? The tall one.
There we go. Perfect. All right. Everyone smile. Smile. All right, hold it, don't move. Parents, if you want to get photos, you can yell right. We got it.
Of course we do.
Okay, I'll get out of here.
Address the board, I assume. Okay, next item on the agenda is the request to address the board, which we have none this evening, so move on to item number 6, informational items. Dr. Kohler, speak about 6.1 extra standard.
Good evening. I had the pleasure of meeting with the Extra Standard Committee in May. And the committee members in attendance are listed. The committee is actually set out in the negotiated agreement, so we have certain people we invite. And I'm very thankful that we had Amanda Wilson and Lisa Albers from the board, and then we had Emily Bailey and Michelle Carter, who are with us tonight on the committee as well. We met and talked through some of the requests that were brought forward by the different schools. We had some changes in activity names. Vocal music is going to be changed to show choir. There was just some confusion about the assignment, which position received that extra standard, and so we're changing the name so that that's just more clear for all of us. FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, is being changed to DECA. Both are business focused. DECA has a little more of a marketing focus. These are the requested additions as far as positions. For senior high, we have assistant track coach, unified assistant track coach, assistant cross-country coach, assistant HOSA sponsor, and assistant bowling coach. And all of those essentially are due to increase in numbers, which is a really good thing. And also to go along with that, like for the assistant track coach, that's a throws coach, and that would provide a girls coach as well as a boys coach. So there were some other additional details that also went along with those positions, but overall numbers, the increase in numbers was the main reason. And then middle school, speech has been added. Westridge is asking for, they've got a really strong speech club, and they've asked for that to become an extra standard. And the other middle schools are also very interested. They want to work together and kind of create that speech atmosphere. Westridge has enough to move into an assistant speech sponsor as well. Their numbers are strong enough. And the other middle schools are hoping that once they start that, those numbers will grow as well. So those were the total requests as far as the extra standard committee is bringing to you today. Any questions for me?
Just curious, is all this fall within budget for this school year and all of that? Like,
It does.
always want to ask.
Yes. Actually, under budget when we, yes. When they presented the numbers and our requests were, we didn't have to actually think a whole lot, so that was good.
Okay, I think that's it. All right, thank you, Dr. Kohler. Item 6.2, policy. Mr. Matt Fisher.
All right, as always, we're going to start out budget reporting on an exciting note, because we're facility policy on an exciting note, and that is that the governance committee discussed the way we go through our policy review, and they have made the recommendation that as we move forward, when we have policies that have no real material change in the policy, that rather than going through the whole approval process of motioning and so on, that those action items that include those policies that have no real substantial change to them would just become a part of the consent agenda. So, as we go through these tonight, we're not making that change until next month. And certainly if there's any board members that have a strong feeling that that's not the direction we should go, we definitely want to hear about that. But otherwise, it's certainly within the realm of what can be done in a consent agenda item. And so, again, if there is a substantial change to the policy, if the intent of the policy is changing in any way, it would still be acted on in the way that we've always done it. But for example, this first policy that we're going to look at here, 6312 on staff wage information, where the only thing we're changing is eliminating some thes, in this case a single the. This would be one that will show up next month as part of the consent agenda, and we won't review it a second time. So anyhow, wanted to make everyone aware of that, that's going to be the way we operate as we move forward. Unless there's some strong objection to that. If there is, you certainly can discuss it with any of your governance committee and we'll talk about it when we meet again. But otherwise, we'll plan on moving forward that way. So that is the first policy that we have, 6312 on staff wage information, really only looking at that the. So moving along to the next policy that we have here. On classified staff, military service. I believe this is one that there were no changes on, so simply in our consent agenda it would be marked as reviewed as part of that. Then as we move on to the next one, classified staff bereavement leave, 6328. Again, there is no proposed changes to that one. So again, that would just be a review. And then as we move to 6329, classified staff, personal illness leave. Here, the only change is simply noting that it talked about the Cronus time record. We are no longer using the Cronus system, so we're proposing to simply eliminate the reference to any time system and just simply talk about the time record. And that way, if there's another change in the future, we won't have to be changing the name that's associated with the software piece that we're using. So again, really no substantial change at all. So again, that would be one that we would run through the consent agenda. All right, classified staff, vacations, holidays. Now this is one that has a little bit more going on here. It does have one of those thes. And then down in the third paragraph there were a couple of places where accrual was thrown in there, and it really didn't seem like there was a need for that. We're really just talking about the allotment of vacation, or the equivalent of 2 years rather than the accrual. And then there is accrual used in a couple places where it makes sense. And then there was an addition at the end, again, just for clarification, as far as that statement: classified staff must be scheduled to work a minimum of 7 hours per day and a minimum of 35 hours per week in order to be eligible for vacations, holidays, and floating holidays. So again, that's not a change in our operations at all. That's what we've been doing. But when Dr. Kohler reviewed the policy, she felt like that was probably an addition that we should have, just for clarification's sake. Questions around that one? All right, if not, then we'll move to these next two that have a little more substantial change work around them. Policy 6461, reduction in force. Here, this was a policy that had not been reviewed since 2011, so certainly was due for a review. And Dr. Kohler went out, did some research, looked at a number of other districts' reduction in force policy, and did some consultation with GIEA to make sure that they were in agreement with the things that we were proposing to put into this. And so as you look through it, there's a statement that's made in that first paragraph, as far as reduction in force may result in termination of employment and amendment to the employee's contract, reducing the employee from full-time to part-time status, or an amendment to the contract of a part-time employee, further reducing the employee's percentage of employment. So again, just a definition of what reduction in force could mean. Then as you look at number 2 there, if you remember when we talked about reductions last year, we didn't talk about individuals, we talked about positions. And so as you think about what's being done there in number 2, the superintendent is going to recommend to the Board of Education the positions that would be reduced, not naming any individuals. And then as you get down here a little further, then some of the things that were in the existing policy are being struck, and in their place is this part when you get down here, as far as the selection of personnel for reduction shall be made with consideration given to the following. And then it bullet points a number of different items that would be the considerations when we are looking at reductions, as far as the programs to be offered, the areas of certification and endorsement, state and federal regulations, and so on. So I think you can look through that set of bullet points there, and then it goes on from there to explain that after the consideration of the above, there's no significant difference existing between employees than the employee with the longest uninterrupted service to the district shall be retained. So basically, you would eventually, if none of those other conditions applied, then you would go to a seniority situation to make a determination on who would be reduced. Then goes on to explain, and really these are legal requirements around the right of recall for 24 months to a position if a position opened up that individual that had been RIF'd was eligible to fill. So questions around, and I think that's, again, there's some information there at the end, some definitions basically that are struck. And then when you get down to, after you get through that part that's struck, there are some new verbiage. And again, I think that new verbiage, a lot of that is around that recall process. Also talks about, eligibility for health insurance and some things along those lines. So questions that anyone would have at this juncture? It's an information item this month. So will we be acting on this one? This will not be one that's in the consent agenda. This will be one that's we get to go through the process of looking through again and having the board act on. Questions around anything with this one? All right. If not, we will go on to student appearance. 8330. This is one of those where we had a legislative mandate to make some changes, and one of those starts out right there in the title. The state refers to this in their legislative passage as student dress code and grooming. So rather than student appearance, we felt like we probably should align with what they have used in terms of their language. And basically, the state put out a model policy, and we were required to have in place either the model policy or a policy that would be equivalent to that model policy. So what you're going to see as you go through here is that, some of the verbiage from the model policy is incorporated. For instance, that first statement that's there, that is a part of the model policy that has been brought into our existing policy. Then we get to the second paragraph there, that is actually, for the most part, what we already had in place. And then as you work your way through there, you're going to see that there are different places where we brought in some of the verbiage from the model policy where we felt like it was needed to make sure that we aligned with the legislative mandate. And then there are some other places where we simply left the language that we already had in place because we liked our language better. So again, we can look at as many specifics here as you would like to. I think some of the meat of the policy is really when you get down to those bullet points. Those are in effect the things that the legislature mandated that we needed to include in this policy. And again, it deals with, not prohibiting hairstyles, not prohibiting attire that maybe has a religious significance or cultural significance. And so again, that was the intent of the legislation, was to basically mandate that we not prohibit those things. Questions around this? Hopefully all of you had an opportunity maybe to spend a little bit of time with this one and familiarize yourself with it. And again, it is just an information item this month. We will be talking about it again next month.
Matt, I feel bad asking this because I was in the room when we were reviewing it. The first paragraph where it said the Grand Island Public School District, was that something about how that had to be phrased? Or did we just miss?
We changed it in the paragraph below that, but we tried to change it in that paragraph.
Okay.
You mean the?
Well, and just saying Grand Island Public Schools is dedicated to celebrating. We had changed the other paragraph, but we didn't change that one. And so I just wanted to make sure we had a note.
Just to take out district
Does that make sense?
and so it's Grand Island Public Schools.
Unless it has to, unless there's something about,
No, I don't think
Okay,
there's,
okay.
again, nothing says we have to adopt exact verbiage.
Right.
It just has to be
okay.
equivalent.
I want to make sure I said something, because that way I wouldn't.
So yeah, we could adjust that. Yep.
Is there, I know this one is a separate one, but for, is there another policy, or is that just for senior high when it comes to graduation? Is that like wanting to wear something that is either culturally or religious? I know there's been sometimes conversations about that in the past, and I know it's not necessarily, it's related to this one, but this one is for every day.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if there's something separate for, or is that something that the high school deals directly?
I think that's maybe in the student handbook. I'll double check that. I know that Dr. Stevens is working on the student handbook right now, so we'll get together and confer as far as whether there's any policy there. And again, you know, even though that's a separate special event, we probably still have to follow the guidelines that are, you know, required in this policy. So we'll need to be cognizant of that as well. Other questions around this one? All right. Not, that's all the policies we have for information. Oh, wait. I guess we'll go to action.
On to number subject 7.0, action items.
Okay, here we go. These are ones we're looking to act on this evening. And again, this is where in the future, these policies that really have no substantial change would not be showing up here. And the board would not have to go through the motion of acting on all these. Workplace Privacy Act. Again, there's not a lot of real significant changes here. We have this and then as we get down here a little bit further, district's technology policies, procedures, and guidelines, including the district's internet use policy and/or practice. So really nothing substantial in terms of the change. It's really just a change in wording. So as we practiced what we would do with these for the next time with the committee, this is probably one that we would not say needed to go through the full process, that this probably could be in the consent agenda, because the reality is there is no change in the functional way that this policy would work because of this grammatical change.
At this point, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 6253, Workplace Privacy Act as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, we proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 6260 on certified staff records. Again, quite a bit of red showing up here, but I think when we look at what we're actually changing, where most of it is from Executive Director of Human Resources to Chief of Human Capital Management, which is the naming practice that we're using at this point in time. We crossed out of files, crossed out of school as part of school district. Again, no real substantial changes in terms of the way the policy acts, so this would again be one that we probably would put in a consent agenda in the future. Any questions around it at this point in time?
Mr. Hawley.
Just a quick clarification on what we're talking about. So, and I sit on the governance committee and we've talked about this. So who's going to make that determination each month? Is that the governance committee who will review these and say, yes, it's going to consent agenda, or no, it's not? And then is that also applicable to information item only policies, or will those be reviewed one month and then if it's insignificant changes the next month, they'll go to the consent agenda?
I think that when we talked about it, that was the policy committee, not the governance committee, would be the one that would make the determination. I think was the way we had set that up, that the policy committee would decide whether it should go consent agenda or whether it should go through the regular process. And the way we talked about that was, or at least in my understanding was, is that all of the policies would come to the full board in the information, and we would talk about what was there, give the full board a chance to look at that policy that was being considered as an information item, and then assuming that there were no, changes that came from the discussion with the full board, and then when the policy committee sat down and did their review prior to the next board meeting when it would be an action item, then they would make a determination as to whether it would be on the consent agenda or in the regular action part of the agenda.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any further questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 6260, certified staff records as presented.
Seconded by Ms. Halbers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
All right, this next policy, 6281, on elementary certified staff preparation time. Here again, there's not any real substantial changes in the way the policy works. The changing is really in the wording where there was a statement about elementary classroom teachers' non-student contact time during music and physical education was what was listed there, but we've since added SECA would be another area where they have non-student contact time, and basically we call all of those specials now. And so the idea would be to change the wording from music and physical education to specials instruction, which normally occurs on a daily basis. And again, this is one probably when we would think about next month, if this was, one of those that we were considering in information, probably because there's really no substantial change in what's being done, this would probably be a consent agenda item.
Any questions for Mr. Fisher? Not. This time I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 6281, elementary certified staff preparation time as presented.
Second by Ms. Halbers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
All right, 6290, non-school employment by certified staff. This is an easy one. Cross out a couple of those and call it a day.
I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 6290, non-school employment by certified staff as presented.
Seconded by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
All right, 6310, certified staff salary schedule. This is kind of an exciting one because we cross out one "the" and we add a "the." Otherwise, it stays the same.
I would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to approve policy 6310, certified staff salary schedule as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, 6311, classified staff compensation. Here we have some "thes" to cross out, and then we crossed out of the GIPS in a couple of places and kind of grouped that where we didn't feel like, since we were talking about the same thing, we didn't need to say it over and over again. And then crossed out the support and just felt like it was classified staff, not support classified staff. So again, no real change in what the intent of the policy is, just kind of cleaning up some wording.
This time I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve policy 6311, classified staff compensation as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, policy 8511 on physical examinations and immunizations for students. This was a policy that when we went through information last month, we did have some questions around this. And so going back and re-looking at some things and you know, studying the information that was shared last time and the thoughts that were presented, made a few modifications to this up there in that first paragraph, and simply looking at that first sentence in there, a certified copy of the student's birth certificate did say issued by the state in which the child was born. Well, we have a number of our students who were not born in any state, and so I think what we're really looking for is a certified copy of the student's birth certificate. And so I think we can cross out that issued by the state in which the child was born. Going on then, upon admission of a child for the first time within 30 days of enrollment. Then just adding a little bit of verbiage there, if a birth certificate is unavailable, other reliable proof of the child's identity and age accompanied by an affidavit explaining the inability to produce a copy of the birth certificate may be used in lieu of a birth certificate. And then it goes on to explain that an affidavit is defined as a notarized statement by an individual who can verify the reason a copy of the birth certificate cannot be produced. And then the next statement is where we started running into questions last time. Failure to provide the birth certificate does not result in non-enrollment or disenrollment. And then the way it was before, it just simply said, but may result in a referral to law enforcement. And so, again, adding a little bit of verbiage around this, you know, the reality is that the state statute requires that we refer the matter to law enforcement. And so I think just putting that statement in there, however, state statute does require the school district to refer the matter to local law enforcement for investigation. It's not really one of those places we have a lot of wiggle room. The statute requires us. So I think making sure that we, you know, state that the statute is there and that is why we are referring this to law enforcement. I think it's important for us to state that. And again, this is our policy. This is not the correspondence that we would necessarily send to individuals who were not able to produce a birth certificate. First of all, we're going to work with them as closely as we can to get either that birth certificate or the in lieu of statement. And, you know, we're going to work through that as best we can. And if we ever got to that point where we felt like we needed to correspond about, you know, them not getting that taken care of, we're gonna designate, you know, what steps, you know, are available to them, how we would work with them, and ultimately we're gonna let them know that if we can't get this resolved, we have an obligation to report it to law enforcement. So, questions around that?
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
I had a quick question on the last two sentences of that. I'm wondering if it needs to be a compound sentence. Me and Mr. Hawley were having a discussion of like, we don't know if it should be, you know, just the way that it reads, like failure to provide birth certificate does not result in non-enrollment or disenrollment. However, yeah, and then the rest, I don't know, there's like an English teacher in the building.
That's what we're looking for. English teacher that can resolve this.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters or like just in itself.
However, you should probably, after disenrollment, put a semicolon and it could have a lowercase h.
Good catch, Eric.
Just like the way that I was reading it, I was like, because just the last sentence right there, sitting by itself, makes it just, interpretable in a variety of different ways.
I mean, it ties them together then. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
semi.
two-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, so disenrollment, semicolon, lowercase, however, state statute.
We do have teachers here. Yeah.
That's attention to detail right there, buddy.
Okay,
Yeah.
are we all in agreement?
Yeah. That.
All right.
That would just be my suggestion. and-
Semicolon, lowercase h.
Yeah.
So as you, I guess, motion for this one, you would motion that it
Sorry.
be approved as revised.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sweet. And I know we've had this discussion before. I was always in the kind of lens that we don't need to specify that we need to send people to law enforcement. Just, I don't know. I don't know what other board members think, but I was like, I think just stating that we will adhere to state statute is enough, but I would be interested to hear why it's important that we say that we would refer the matter to local law enforcement for investigation.
I think it was in small group, kind of talked about it. So the biggest thing for me was, how are we going about when a child comes in? But I think I know as JPS, we're doing everything we can to get that document from the parent, right? And one of the things that we're trying to prevent is also child trafficking, or we're trying to prevent the child in danger. And also knowing that the statute is there, regardless of we want to put it or not, is there. So what is the reality of keeping, at the end of the day, how do we keep children safe? And if I am trafficking somebody, am I really gonna go through the steps of putting the kid through school? So there's a lot that goes into that. Where I kind of took peace, and I know our staff, they do a great job about making sure they help families through it. I'm a certified interpreter and translator, so I do a lot of birth certificate translations and notarize. So I know that even though we're looking for the birth certificate, there's other ways to help parents get the second document. So it's really not that we're saying, hey, first thing, this is what we're going to. We want to keep families safe, but there's a process. So I mean, I was from the last time we talked about it, I was struggling with it as well. But to me, as long as we are helping our parents go through it, and I know sometimes there are countries that it's gotten very easy to actually jump online and get a certified copy digital, and it's great. And in others, you have to jump a few hoops and still on paper, but you can get other documents. So that's kind of where I have peace that I know we are doing the best we can. It's not the first thing that we're trying to make it difficult for parents. And it does make me nervous just in the political environment that we're in at this point, having such a diverse community, and being immigration a big topic, and being documentation a big topic. That was my struggle, but that's kind of where I take peace. So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Hawley.
And I think you and I sat in small group together when we talked about this, and I tend to sit on the same side you do, Carlos, in that it's not meant to be a scare tactic by any means. It is state statute. It is what it is. And we know we have a very diverse population coming into Grand Island Public Schools. I think to me it comes down to, like you just talked about, child trafficking, right? In that they could be from anywhere, for example, the United States, and come enroll and then say, oh, yep, we'll get that birth certificate later. It helps us to track and make sure kids don't fall through the cracks. Regardless, if we have to report to law enforcement, we're going to do so. And so I don't see a reason why not to state it in the policy.
Mr. Sykes.
I can't remember if we sat in the same room during those discussions, but the thought that I had was we're not leading with that statement with a new enrolled student when they walk into Stolly Park Elementary and saying, hey, if you don't provide this, we're going to report this to law enforcement, because that's where it could be intimidating to someone trying to enroll, but needing to have it in policy for the administrator of what's next when we don't have the paperwork. I feel like this makes it easier. Instead of seeing it saying we're going to stick to state statute, now you need to go see state statute and do that. This was like, no, if it, because not many of the people of our city are reading policy as a, you know, a nighttime hobby, you know. And if they're enrolling a student, they're gonna take whatever sheet of paper the secretary gives them and says, oh, you wanna enroll here? Here's your steps. We need to get that certified, the certified copy. It gives them the steps.
Ms. Wilson?
I think it's important also to not, like, I feel like if we say, look in the statute, that would be hard. But also, I feel like it's being more transparent. Like, we don't want to catch anybody off guard either and make it seem like we were being secret about what could come, you know? So I think where it's at is a good place, and it's just stating what could happen, not what we're trying to do or anything. But yeah, I just think it's more open and honest to put it in there.
Okay. No further questions. I would entertain a motion at this time. You have a question? Mr. Hawley?
So Matt, when we reviewed this, we talked about that last paragraph, and we talked about how it states, a student who fails to meet the foregoing requirements shall not be permitted to enroll or enter school, or if provisionally enrolled without compliance shall be not permitted to continue in school. And when you and I spoke about this,
The contradictory statement.
the contradictory
between that
statement in paragraph 1 versus the last paragraph, this doesn't work.
And we didn't get that cleaned up, did we?
I don't believe so. Because 1 states that not having the certified copy of the birth certificate is not a reason for disenrollment or non-enrollment. So it contradicts each other still.
Yep, so we better shelf this one for another.
Because I think it may be in reference to students that are homeless. I mean, because we cannot preclude anyone from staying enrolled, being enrolled.
Right.
And staying enrolled directly related to that.
Yep, and I'm all for that. I just don't know how we can pass the policy when it's a direct contradiction.
They do. So we better hold off on acting on this until we clean that piece up.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, we will go ahead and table that one. That is the, yeah, probably better make a motion. I would entertain a motion to table.
I make a motion to table policy 8511, physical examinations and immunizations for students till a later date.
Second by Ms. Albers. Questions? Discussion? None. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Reports. Grand Island Public Schools Foundation report, Ms. Lisa Albers.
The foundation received more than 2,000 nominations for 489 teachers and staff for the 2025 Teacher of the Year program, Teacher, Staff, and Administrator of the Year. This year, we went online with all nominations. Winners will be announced at the Welcome Back in August for the 21st year. Our sponsor for this program will be First National Bank of Omaha. The foundation board will have the following business before them at their June 17th, 2025 meeting. Teacher of the Year winner recommendation, Miller Legacy Scholarship and Grand Island Public Schools Foundation Professional Development Grant recipient will be recommended. 2025 audit engagement, investment policy review. The foundation board will also review the 2025 scholarship program statistics, including feedback from reviewers, and the annual scholarship application integrity audit. The foundation board does not plan to meet in July.
Thank you, Ms. Albers. Item number 8.2, Superintendent Report, Mr. Fisher.
Okay, we have summer school going on, so despite the fact that school is out, school is not really out. So we do have a number of different summer schools going on. We've got Yale students at Stolly Park. We've got elementary students at a couple of our elementary buildings. We've got some high school credit recovery taking place. This last week we had middle school, sixth grade students at bar, meeting with SROs and a little bit of citizenship learning experiences. And so we've got a lot of different things, power camp. So a lot of different school pieces still taking place really throughout the month of June. I think summer schools run until June 26th. So we've got a couple more weeks of those going on. So quite a bit of school, even though we're not in school. A couple of, I guess, meetings that I was a part of this last week. On Monday, I met with the ADs and both the high school and the middle school ADs. Talked about a number of different items. The things that probably we spent the most time around was budgeting and how much money each of the middle school in particular ADs have and how that's allocated. And just, we have 3 new middle school ADs as well as new high school ADs. So it's there's some experience there, but not a lot of background. And so as we've gone through this last year, and I've met with the ADs on about a monthly basis, and budgeting continues to be one of those things that they have a lot of questioning around. So actually Virgil sat in with us the other night. I think did a good job of lending some clarification, but ultimately we ended up at a point where we decided we really need to sit down with the middle school principals and the middle school ADs and make sure that we had a good, firm understanding of exactly, how monies, were budgeted for the activities in those middle schools. And so we're working on trying to find a date to do that. The other big item that we felt like we needed to discuss with the principals was the eligibility policies and really trying to make sure that they're uniform from one middle school to the other, because right now there's definitely some variations in, what happens when a student is failing, and so we really feel like that needs to be uniform. So again, that was one of those areas where we felt like we needed to involve the principals and have some further discussion about that. Today we had a Zoom meeting to discuss musical instruments. Again, Virgil was a key part of that. We have a number of repairs that are needing to be done with our instruments across the district, and repairing musical instruments is expensive. And so when basically what we found is that we've kind of been behind on getting repairs made. When we had extra dollars, we bought a lot of musical instruments. We really added a lot of instruments that we were able to put in students' hands, but we didn't use a lot of money during that time to repair instruments. And so there's a little bit of a lag in terms of the instrument repairs. Obviously, we've had a turnover in music directors, and music directors are going to tend to look at things a little bit differently. And so the music directors that we have right now, in terms of those instrumental music, have just looked at a lot of our instruments as needing to have some repairs. We've also had a growth in terms of our middle school instrumental music students, and so we've needed to do some shuffling. I think the practice had been that instruments followed the student as they moved from middle school to high school, so they took their instrument with them, which ultimately has left our middle school short on instruments. And so we need to do some returning, and the high school music instructors, to their credit, felt like if they were going to return instruments, they ought to be in good shape. And so that's part of the instrument repair as well. So we're working with them to try and get that all ironed out. I was invited to meet with the College Park Board and representatives from Chadron State College earlier this week. And really, College Park has been, struggling to find a good college partner since Doane College moved out of that business. And so they had reached out to Chadron State to try and have a sit down and talk about, well, what would that maybe look like if Chadron was a partner with them. And it just happened that the interim president, it was actually her first day on the job as interim president, was there, and she is just leaving a position with the state board that oversees all of the state colleges. And so she was, I guess, well aware of how all the state colleges work with one another or don't work with one another, as the case may be. And ultimately, the discussion worked its way around to maybe it making more sense than to think about a Chadron or a Wayne or a Peru being the single entity that would work, to establish some kind of a 4-year program, that maybe it should be a collaborative effort between all of the state colleges. And so that, I think, really struck a chord with, the people that were there, and we had some representatives from the community and some of the different entities in the community that, have really been trying to promote some kind of a 4-year college in Grand Island, and so really a good discussion. Hopefully it will go somewhere. Dr. Cooper was the interim president at Chadron, and she was going to be meeting with the chancellor for all of the state colleges the next day. So actually she was going to turn right around and put it in front of them, and hopefully continue the discussion at their level, and then we'll see where it goes. Hopefully they come back with, say, hey, that's a great idea. It's something that we'd like to pilot, and Grand Island's the perfect place to pilot it. So we'll see where that goes. Otherwise, Virgil could talk a lot more about this than I could, but I know it's come across my desk the last few days. I've got budget materials. The budget materials from the auditor's office are now available. Earlier this week, we got the certification in terms of what our revenue cap was going to be for this year. We're just slightly below 3.5% is what the cap would be. And then the board would have the opportunity to vote an additional 5% above that. And so anyhow, that's, kind of a next step, I guess, in the budgeting process. I know Virgil's been working on budget for months, but now the actual materials are out, and he can start working on the state budget documents, and we know where that revenue cap is. And so really, I think about the only missing piece right now is the valuations that we won't see until August 20th. And anyhow, then we'll continue to work from there. Other than that, the legislature is done. I think that overall it wasn't a bad session. Although when we start doing policy review next month, you may think that it was, because there are a number of things that we're going to have to work our way through in terms of policies and adjusting them, because the legislature felt like there were changes that needed to happen. And so we'll work our way through those. Financially, really no big changes in terms of the finance. The only thing that really came out of the legislature around finances is they are going to put a committee to study finances in place. And so that will be interesting to see what that review committee does over the course of the next year, and what recommendations they might come out with. So otherwise, I know Eric and Lisa were at the law conference at the NASB today. I don't know whether they picked up other things that they felt like we needed to share at this point in time. Certainly would welcome them to share.
Ms. Albers.
It was a riveting conference. But you're right about policy. They went, so it was a law conference, and so they went over, it was a bunch of different attorneys speaking, but they went over several different policies, and I took some notes. I've already talked to you about a couple of them. I would text Mr. Fisher, like, do we have this? Did we do this? And he always had an answer, so that was good. But I think this conference is really good for smaller districts that don't have access to like a whole IT department. There was a lot of conversations about FERPA and COPA and all the acronyms, and but GIPS is big enough that we have access to have a lot of support, and I think that makes a big difference. But I think for a lot of districts, smaller districts, I think there's a lot of good information today, maybe some information that made some of them a little nervous because they might be behind on getting some of these things completed because there are a lot of deadlines. Anything you want to add, Eric?
The only one I would add is some of the legislation right now that passed, for instance, like the initiative of medical marijuana and just like how that plays in terms of the commission still hasn't released anything about how school districts should kind of regulate all of that in terms of like a child who has like epilepsy or anything like that, like who would administer the medication and stuff like that. So a lot of just good stuff to just kind of be on our radar in terms of what's coming. Yeah, and then a lot of legislation. I don't have my notes with me, otherwise I'd walk through all of them with you all. But yeah, that's it.
All right, well, thank you for sharing that, and otherwise that concludes my report. Questions anyone would have?
All right, seeing none, our next regular